yourself to the point of black and blue bruises or bleeding, carving yourself, punching, kicking, or hitting yourself, somewhat to what Ingrid was saying. And again, scratching and pinching yourself to the point of bleeding, and that's called dermatillomania. It's actually really interesting because with people who have dermatillomania, they'll usually scratch themselves aggressively to the point where they'll start bleeding because it's so aggressive. And one that I was personally surprised by was drinking poisonous liquids. And there are people who will drink, for example, like Clorox or a certain type of bleach or other liquids that we're not supposed to be drinking, like Windex and stuff. But just out of curiosity, which one are you guys most shocked about, or like didn't know it was a form of self-harm before today? Yeah.
I guess I'm like surprised to not see, I guess like alcohol or drug abuse in general. I don't know if you guys could explain that, because I know a couple of friends who like, they're stressed out, so they'll drink and they might overdrink. Like it might not be a consistent thing, but like they use that as a form of like coping with the stress.
No. So I was actually going to go more into how alcoholism, no, it's fine. It's really important. How alcoholism and drug abuse they're not mutually exclusive to self-harm. And even drinking to the point of blacking out is a form of self-harm, right? Because you're trying to reality in that moment of being drunk. Same thing with drugs. These are more of things that, how can I say, because again, these are just a few. Like there's like a ton. If I show you guys a list, you'll be surprised like the things that people can come up with to self-harm. But drug abuse and alcoholism is more, it's known to be a self-harm, but people have already done events on that, which is why I'm more into about it. But yeah, like those are forms of self-harm as well.
I don't want to move too much forward. I don't know. Can it be something that happened only for a period of time and then it stops? Because some years ago, my son had this girlfriend, and his way of dealing with her was to burn his arm with cigarette because he did not want. She was very aggressive, and I spoke to her, but she would just push him to limits. And because I've taught him never to raise his hand on a woman, it's like she would go to the extra left. So one day I didn't see him do it, but I look at his arm and he just, thank God she's gone. He doesn't do that anymore, but is that something that can be just for a period of time?
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, by the way. So that is a form of self-harm. Taking cigarette butts and putting it on your wrist or anywhere in your body is definitely a form of self-harm. I guess the questions I would be asking is if he still does it, then okay, so like he is a survivor of self-harm then, which is really awesome.
I
for
think
him.
she just brought up the
Yeah, of course. A lot of events will happen in someone's life where it can be very triggering, and it sounded like this girl was extremely triggering for him, which might have been the reason as to why he committed self-harm and felt like it was the only way out. But yeah, thank you again for sharing.
I just want to say something going back to the drinking. The reason why I personally didn't think that it should have been up there is because, like Susie said, they're not mutually exclusive. Some people would drink, would binge drink, and then that would cause the self-harm. That will like get someone to go and cut themselves or do any of these. So it's like binge drinking or drinking in general may be a form of self-harm. also lead to other different types of self-harm.
Okay, so the next question is, why do you think people self-harm, and what thoughts or emotions do you think come up for them? Actually, let's pair up, yeah. Why don't you tell the person next to you?
Hello, Bob.
So just think about like thoughts that may go through the person's mind as they're cutting or breaking or doing any of these, or the feelings that might be occurring while they're doing it. Maybe before the cutting or after. It could be either.
If you guys want to talk like that, you can. I just didn't want you blocking the camera.
Yeah, they will.
Probably just like there's no other way out. Like
Stacy,
express
you
themselves.
two pair up.
You know what I mean?
I just see if she's all alone.
Maybe like when they're frustrated with one another. Like I've seen kids. I've had kids like for my job. Like when they lose at a video game, they hit themselves. So they'll like that. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's like you know what you're doing kind of thing.
yeah, or make a mistake. I think stuff like that, especially maybe like, you do that on a test, maybe you hit yourself or something like that. Like, you know. Is her name Alexandra? I don't know. Does she have like brown hair?
Yeah, what?
It's just,
Oh, there's a quiz.
those air gushers?
No, we're not gonna like give it out. It's not like formal or anything. Okay, so I'm assuming you guys are done. Can some of you share what you and your partner came up with? Anything? Ingrid.
So, for the before emotions, we felt like anger, being overwhelmed, or sadness, or whatever, or loneliness. And then after, I would assume Stephanie brought up a really good point of guilt. You might feel like a lot of guilt or remorse of what you did. And maybe even a sense of relief. So we feel guilty about doing it, but then you feel relieved, but now you're feeling remorse because, you know, you harmed yourself.
Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? You two talking. What were you guys saying? No, I'm looking at you two, Stacy.
I would say like maybe like trying to like when she's like a release, like maybe you feel like there's just so much negativity in you that you want to just let it flow and oh I don't know.
Yeah, I said that it could be like a cry for help, like you want to do something dramatic to get other people to recognize it, to the difficult way out of discussing it out loud.
Anyone else? You guys in the back have so you No? Yes?
Well, I think what he said is like some people feel some pain, so emotions.
So, these are some thoughts of where people self-harm. So I decided to kind of like divide it in half. So here's just general thoughts of like why they do it, and then these are like specific thoughts. So for example, to escape their feelings, like many of you guys said, cope with life stressors, feel a moment of silence in your life. Like when you have a lot of things going on in your life and you have no sense of control, and you cannot control anything because, you know, you feel like you just don't have the power, you know, or you just think that you can't do it. Sometimes you just like want to be in a space of your own where you think like nothing else is going to hinder you or do anything. To express their pain. So some people don't have the exact words as to explaining what they feel. Some people just lack that ability to be able to communicate with others what they're feeling. So that is like a wake-up call to other individuals to kind of like notice, listen, I'm going through this, I'm going through pain. So expressing that, to distract themselves from whatever is happening in their life, and also because it is very addictive. So once you start, it's a cycle, because like Ingrid was saying, fine, you are feeling lonely or you're stressed or depressed. Once you cut, you feel relief, or whatever else you do, you feel relief, but then again you feel like there is that pain again, you feel guilt. So you go, it's a vicious cycle in which you feel bad, you feel good, then you feel bad, so then you do it again. And then some of the thoughts that occur as they're doing this is the deserving punishment. So some people think that because they're going through so much stuff, it's their fault, and they're the ones that need to be punished. So for example, let's say a teenager, his parents are going, or her parents are going through a divorce. They might feel that the divorce is their fault, and they can't do anything about it. No matter how many times they speak to their parents about, not splitting up or whatever, the parents will always just say, listen, like, we are not getting along, we're having problems, so we can't be together. They might not be able to understand that, and so they think that it's their fault, that they did something, so they feel like they're the one that needs to be punished. So it would lead to self-harming behavior. And then another thing is, like I said before, feeling pain is better than nothing. So that feeling of being numb to situations or to any feelings. If I am a person that I cannot feel anything, that I haven't experienced love, that I can feel anything else rather than physical pain, then they may engage in that. And then also thinking that they have no choice. So if they feel like they can talk to anyone, that nobody else understands, they would resort to this behavior, because once you think that, you will automatically just say to yourself, well, this is the only thing that makes me feel better. This is the only thing that periodically makes me feel better. So because I don't have that system in which I can talk to someone, I might as well just continue with this behavior.
And to kind of piggyback off of D'Angela's point, the feeling, or it's not necessarily a feeling, but the state of being numb and feeling really empty inside, it can be extremely powerful. And some people who self-harm, who are in that state, will self-harm to feel something, whether it's exteriorly or interiorly. And that could be a reason, as well as, has anybody seen the movie Inside Out, the animated movie? Yeah, okay, so that was the perfect movie, I think, for anyone in any age group, because unfortunately within a lot of cultures, when we think about intersectionality, a lot of cultures don't stress education on emotional regulation, right? And a lot of cultures, right, mental health is not seen as a reason or as an excuse as to why you feel the way you feel, right? Like in Arab culture, there's no such thing as depression, right? You're just being too much. Like, you're just seeking attention right now. Like, get over it, right? And that's the same thing across other cultures as well. And so having that thought and being socially constructed that way from a very young age can be very difficult when you get older and you have all of these things happening in your life and you don't know how to express them. You don't know how to say, like, okay, I feel sad or I feel angry at this, and you don't know how to communicate these emotions either, or these thoughts. And some of it can be fear of being judged by others, right? Like, I'm sure at one point some of us were afraid to come out and like tell a friend or a family member, like, I think I'm feeling really sad right now because of this. And I don't know if anybody else was taught that crying is a weakness, right? Especially like within a patriarchal society, I'm sure men have been taught that from a very young age, right? Like, don't cry. And these are very subtle things that are said from when we're, essentially when we're kids, when we're babies, that later on affect us, and it's interesting to see how different social constructions, like don't cry, you look weak if you cry, affect us when we get older, that we don't know how else to cope other than in private, and it can be self-harm, self-destructing, self-mutilation.
No, I was just gonna comment about the whole crime thing. I also think it has to do a lot with culture. So I feel like I can't generalize for all Latinx communities or Hispanic communities. But I know that at least, you know, in my household, even though we were all girls, all I have is sisters, there are no, you know, boys in my house other than my dad. We were all told growing up, don't cry, by my mother and my father. And that does stuff to you. Like, it's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with, you know, having a cry out, you know, having a moment, right? So, you know,
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think it took me until like last year to understand what anger is and what sadness is. In a weird way, I couldn't like navigate what I was feeling because I was never taught like this is what sadness is and this is what anger is, this is what frustration is. And a lot of times we're neglected of that really important educational aspect in our lives, as well as like self-harm is a form of control, right? Someone who self-harms can control when to do it, where to do it, how often to do it. And so when things are kind of going crazy in their life and they're not in control of them, they'll try to bring that control with themselves and can look at self-harm as that way.
So, going back to the feelings, I separated the categories because if anything, what this class has taught me is that thoughts are different from feelings. So every time I thought about the concept, why do people self-harm, I always thought about it as in one thing, like, okay, what are they doing? Why do they do it? I never thought about it as in thoughts versus feelings. So that's why in the previous slide you thought that it was thoughts, the thoughts that are going through their mind. Now this is more like what they're feeling before they do it and after they do it. So like we were talking about before, so before people engage in the behavior, they might be going through sadness, self-loathing, emptiness, guilt, rage, numbness to feelings, and boredom. And to me, boredom sort of surprised me a little because why would you engage in such a harming behavior if you are bored? Why don't you just do something else? But it goes back to that feeling of kind of
Euphoria.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that feeling of euphoria.
Yeah, exactly. So you want that high. You want a natural high. And I know it sounds a little bit crazy because you want to know, okay, why does that person want to feel high? But it goes back to everything. Like everything is a cycle. So if you're bored, you want a natural high feeling. Why do you want that natural high feeling? Because you might be sad, you might be lonely, you might feel like you don't have anyone to talk to. So all of these situations in which they're going through, you have to pay close attention to because someone may be going through things that we don't understand. So they might be doing something to cope with something that we don't understand. They might be doing something else that we don't understand. So it's like we don't understand what they're going through, yet we don't understand how they're fixing it or how they are, per se, dealing with it. So someone who is being bullied or, I don't know, someone who constantly think they're not worthy enough, they might engage in this behavior. So, like Susie was saying just a few minutes ago, it's also a feeling of control. So, if you don't have control over what is going on in your life, cutting or burning or binging gives you a reason and gives you, a feeling of control because you know when you're doing it, you know what time you're doing it, you know why you're doing it. So there's many things that you can control. You can control the environment, the place, the people that, not so much the people that are around you, but the people who you let into your life and let them know about what is going on, which some of them don't even do. So it's like you're able to control everything that is going on.